back, everyone, to my podcast, Woman Who Swim with the Sharks. Today, we are diving even deeper with the amazing Cristina Zenato. We're going to explore her passion for cave diving and her incredible exploration work and how all it ties into her mission to protect sharks and our oceans. Let's dive in. Cristina, I'm beyond thrilled to have you back and to spend more time learning about you. And this time is such a mysterious word that is very unknown personally for me, but I want to hear all about it, like the cave diving. Well, thank you so much, Cristina, for being here today.
Thank you, Pia. Thank you for having me for the second time. And thank you for, I have to admit, I've done quite a lot of podcasts, but your questions, both when we did the sharks and the questions that came in for the cave, very, very well researched, really, really good. It's such a pleasure to communicate with you because you are really in our world and you really understand it and you can bring it forward to many more people. So thank you for the work that you put into this.
That means the world to me, especially coming from you. You know, I'm a true fan, and I had such a great feedback from our first episode. For whoever didn't listen to it, we was especially all about shark essentials, I call it. I had such a great feedback, so I will not wait to be back. And really, for me, like Christina, you know, I'm been diving for 15 years. I dive in different parts of the planet. I've been an instructor. I have thousands of that, but cave diving is such an unknown place for me, and I have so many reservations about it. So that's what also is super special for me to get into this is like a full instruction for me, and I hope like to everybody that is a diver to dive into this. So to start with, why you don't tell me when and how did your journey into cave diving started?
It started as early as the shark journey, at least as a notion, as a passion. What happened is uh, as you know, I fell in love with the sharks, moved to the Bahamas, I started diving here. And on the 11th dive ever, my instructor said, oh, they do this Bent's Cavern tour. He said, usually you're required to have 20 dives. He said, but you're good enough. He said, you can go. And Ben Rose, who discovered the cavern, is going to take the tour. So I signed up for the tour, for the Bent's Cavern tour. The cavern is, for those who don't know, the first room of a cave. So you can still see the daylight. There's a sunlight coming in from a distance. And it was love at first sight. Now, from that to becoming a cave diver, it would take me 2 years because to become a cave diver, because you cannot do that after your ever open water dive. But the love started there and then. And it started with Ben Rose with the little cavern tour, which is something that a diver with 20 dives can do. There's some caverns that are very safe to do. But yeah, it goes as far back as the sharks. It was both of them at the same time. But when you said reservations, I have to say, and I know your questions will come out. It's really interesting because a lot of people have reservations about sharks, and you and I have, through our work or through our years with also the guests that you have had, dispelled some of these myths. And we find, some of the reservations come from miscommunication or wrong information. Well, then I say sometimes the same for caves. That there's a lot of myths about caves and cave diving specifically. And so I hope this podcast helps clearing some of those as well, as it did for sharks.
Absolutely. And for me, exactly on the same as I say, like about sharks, like a lot of people, they don't know, they know what they say about the media. And I'm sure you will uncover like the same way people see sharks is the same way I'm seeing like kind of caves. It's because I think misinformation. And of course, we're going to get to the point, and I'm sure you will, for me, even for me, you will open a full new world. But what do you like to explore caves? What was like what is drawing you into this world?
Where do I start? So the first thing that fascinates me about cave is I usually say the time does not tick. And yes, at the same level in the caves is the history of our planet carved in stone. So there's a personal way when you're in a cave because the light is always the same and the tunnels, quote unquote, are the same. They're not, they're changing, but they're changing ever so slowly, right? In millennia, not in a lifetime of a human being. Then when I go in the cave, first of all, it could be midday, it could be midnight, it could be 2 a.m., 3 p.m. It does not matter. It never changes. And that gives a sense of, very much to me, comfort and peace and stability. The other one is a cave to me is going through. I imagine when I swim through a cave, I have this enormous book that I open. It's just almost an ancient library of Constantinople's, and you go, when you open this book, and there carved in stone is the history. First of all, obviously, of the cave of the Bahamas, but eventually also of the world, and is all there for us to take. Never mind, and obviously the unique creatures of the decorations, very much a place of beauty and information. There's history, there's archaeological history, there's biological history, there's mystery. I always say we spend so much time, so much money, and so much time trying to go to Mars. And I'm like, we have Mars underneath our feet. In some of these caves, there's animals that live in eternal darkness, oxygenless, in the water. What more alien creature do you want that don't need light, don't need oxygen, and are living under the water forever? And so that is what fascinates me about caves. There's just absolute beauty.
And what kind of this, sorry, about these animals, can you tell me some names of this? I don't know. This is a completely unknown for me. So I would like if you can give me a little description.
So most of the animals in the caves are actually small animals. We're talking about millimeters, maybe if we're talking about a couple of centimeters. And the reason why is the metabolic rate in a cave is very low. There's not plenty of food. Everything feeds on small things. But I think the most important one, which is actually related to Ben's Cave here on Grand Bahama Island and Sagittarius on Sweden Ski, is called the Remipedia. In English, they call it Remipedia, but it's Remipedia, which means feet like oars. And it was discovered in 1979 by Dr. Jill Yeager. And she wrote her PhD thesis in 1981. And is basically, it looks like a segmented worm, a segmented millipede that swims through the water by moving the feet, like they're like all like little cilias, and is always moving. We have cocopods, we thermosebaceans, which looks like, let's say, miniature shrimps. We have the lucifuga, which is the blind cave fish, which is born with like two little balls of eyes that don't work. And then as the fish grows, actually the eyes fall out. And these creatures are completely white. They have no capability of resisting UV light, so they can never be exposed to the sunlight. But if you shine your cave light on them, they don't even feel it. They don't move. But if you can be also a couple of meters away, 8 feet away, you move your hand like this, and they'll go, oh, there's something next to me. So, and then we have microbial growth. So when you see it, you don't even realize it's an animal, but it's actually clusters of these animals. And by definition, animals is a creature that has to be able, that goes and procure nutrition. They cannot create their own nutrition. It's a very broad generation, but these animals, this microbial growth lives and creates this giant clusters, almost looks like sponges of like this material and sedimentation, but actually at the end of the day, they're alive, obviously alive in a different way than maybe you and I or the dog, but nevertheless, an animal, a critter.
It's insane. That's insane. I did not know about these creatures. And you think, like, through research and everything, we should be learning more about these animals? Because the same way you say, like, these are like aliens, creatures.
Yes, as we should be learning about them. One, because of how unique they are. Two, because how delicate they are. The ambient of a cave, as beautiful as it is, as fantastic as it is, and you realize very quickly, right? It's oxygenless, it's lightless, it has this. All it takes is maybe a little bit of pollution or a change in the salinity of the water to change the environment under which these creatures live. And I always say, if there's a creator on this planet, there's a reason for it. Even sometimes the mosquitoes, people go, the mosquitoes. If there's mosquitoes, there's a reason for it. They're either food for someone or they feed on something, but they, as much as we despise a certain animals, they're here for a reason. And so these creators in this caves do have a purpose, do have a reason to be. What we also need to remember is there's other critters in the caves, and maybe not right at the entrance of the caves, but you well know the blue holes of the Bahamas, the ones that open the gate into the ocean, transport quite a lot of nutrients and feed a big array of animals that are traditional ocean animals, from corals to jellyfish, all the way to sharks. They provide affluations for, nursery grounds, for example. And so it's not just specifically the critters in the caves, but everything that rotates around the health of the cave that is to be taken into consideration. I think before we try to do Mars, we should really learn about our planet and what lays below our feet and what we're doing, unfortunately, that is damaging what is below our feet.
Yeah, and what you were saying, you mentioned before, you feel like when you're going through a cave, you're seeing history. So what did a cave tells you? What do you say this is history? What kind of history you can find in a cave?
Okay. How many hours do we have?
All the time you can.
So there's a history of the cave in itself, right? How the cave formed. Was the tunnels carved by erosion? Was the tunnel formed by a movement of the plateau of the planet? How it was even sedimented in some of the caves where the cavern opened. You can actually see what we call the bedding plane, which is the strata by which millennia after millennia, the Bahamas formed, right? So you can see actually where we come from and where we're going. The stalactites, stalagmites, so the what we call the flow stones inside our caves also tell us of a shift, ever shifting sea level. I tell people, a lot of people tell me, well, I don't believe in climate change. And you can say, well, you might want to rephrase that and say, I do not believe that humans are affecting climate change. And that's a totally different conversation that I don't want to go through. But you cannot say, I do not believe in climate change. Climate change has happened, is happening, and will happen again. In the Bahamas, we have speleothems, flow stones, in up to 400 feet of depth inside flooded caves. In order for the speleothems to form, you needed air. That means the sea level, and has been proven, was a 400 feet lower than it is nowadays. However, in the Bahamas, we also have caves that formed about 20 feet about what is the current sea level. That means also the ocean was at a certain point 20 feet higher than it is now. And there's all the chances, although it's not supposed to, but because of certain things are happening, that it might go there again, which is very worrisome because if you think Grand Bahama Island highest point sea level is 21 feet above sea level, there's not many places. Those are some of the things that you can see in the cave. They're in your eyes. You can see it also. Then scientists can grab a stalactite or a stalagmite and they can cut it horizontally. So when you cut it horizontally, there are rings like a tree, and they can actually read the changes in the environment. Because remember, this comes from sedimentations of water, calcite that dripped through the limestone that collected. So each ring has a story of drought, of flood, of rich water, of cold winter, of warm winter. And then they can also cut them vertically. And there you can really see when the stalactite or the stalagmite grew and then paused, and there was like a calcification over when it was under the water. Second time when it grew, calcification
Yes.
under the water. Third time when it grew and now is under the water and being calcified again. A lot of information. And this is like deep studies, but even swimming through, you can see things that have happened. Unsettling of the cave. There's some decorations that fell and then other decoration that grew on top of it. Well, that tells you another story
Right.
of movement. So I found it fascinating. And every time is the other cool part is like the ocean. I can swim the same tunnel 1,000 times and see something that maybe I didn't see before, a little detail, something that catches my eyes, or some more information, and something that leaves me with a question that then I have to go and research and find out what happened.
That's super interesting, Christina, because I remember I did the cenotes
Mhm.
in Mexico, and my feel was like I did the cenotes, but well, I did not know, first of all this knowledge about this little creature. I didn't see any creature. So I was like, I'm ready to go back in the ocean and see like marine life and everything. But yeah, I think what's missing for like I didn't learn or have this awareness of all the history you can be seeing just from the structures and the stories you can be told. And that's
Yeah,
super good to know.
and that maybe that's an acquired taste. But for example, even when I do my cavern tour, which is open to open water divers with 20 dives. I usually tell them the tour is shorter than my briefing because not true, but I like to give information. I want them to know what they're seeing. I want them to know what happened. So I said, when we pass by this fracture, you'll see flowstone coming out of the crack. What happened is the room was heavy, and then this happened and that happened. So that when they see it, is not just a piece of something that actually has a history related to it. And it makes very much sense. There is a column that we visit where it came off the ceiling and is sitting on the bottom. So the ceiling is good, the top is completely cut off, and you can actually see the original holes where the column started and all the rings. We don't need it to cut it. It just came off the ceiling, about 30,000 years ago, and it sits in the midwater. But when you go on the top and you see all the holes and all the rings, and for people, is one of those, I see it now, I understand. So sometimes even sharing a little bit more, I think, makes more interest. Because I had people saying, why do you cave dive? There's no life. Quote unquote is true. It's not, where you jump in and you have 1,000 jacks swimming by you and a dozen sharks and maybe the occasion to see turtles and like what you and I see here in the Bahamian waters. The creatures are very small, but the other thing, like anything, once your eyes start seeing them, then you start catching them, and they're everywhere. And some of them are absolutely minuscule, but there is like this popping of life that is absolutely incredible.
That's amazing, Christina. Thank you for sharing that. You already just rewiring my cave diving like vision.
Well, remember, you and I are due diving together, so maybe we'll
That
I'll
would
reintroduce you to the world of caverns and caves.
say your word for it. Like I will definitely come and do that. Like this will be a good start. No, and you already like when it's, oh, wow, I love history. I love when I'm diving. I love to see that and they see the difference. Especially with all these like fast, I don't know, you see all these ladies going to space and everything. I really wanted to do like a post or something about like we ladies, we can go like to zero gravity and imagine a cave is something
That is
super
space.
powerful. Yeah, it
That is
is.
space. It is space. There's nothing like a cave that is not like space. Your umbilical cord, if you want to call it, is a line that we lay in a cave. But at the end of the day, down there, we're completely have to be completely self-sufficient. And again, I don't want to say things to scare. Like when you're in a cavern, obviously you can see the daylight. But in a cave dive, when I'm 5,000 feet inside a cave, I have to have the planning, the gas, the training, the mindset, not only to go there, but the mindset also to come back the 5,000 feet. Furthermore, I need to have the mindset to come back if I experience a failure. To there is in the cave diving training, and I'm pretty sure you were going there, but you and I always kind of like go into space and talking about these things. Is the cave diving training is meticulous. The cave diving training is designed to hold you back in a way. It could be almost like people's like, what do you mean you want to hold me back? Yes, I want to hold you to certain levels for a certain period of time and only a certain distance for another period of time, and then funnelize you capable of going to a certain further in. But to go even further, then it takes even more specializations. I just redid my website, Cave Dive, in this part, and we teach cavern, intro, full cave. And then after full cave, if you want to go further than what your 2 tanks are, it's called stage cave diving. You need 100 cave dives. So you need to keep swimming back and forth on your basic gas. And then I teach you how to carry 3 tanks, 4 tanks to go forward. Well, further. Why? Because when you're out there, like I said, 3, 4, 5,000 feet inside the cave, you need to have the mindset to deal with whatever happens to take you back. And to have the mindset, it doesn't come in 12 dives. It comes in repetition. It comes in going in, coming out, going in, coming out, going in, have a little problem, this distance from the entrance, coming out, dealing with a problem. And slowly you build yourself up. It's it's very much a very humbling activity. It should not be an ego activity. Cave diving, it's a humbling activity. It's an activity where I've gone to the water with my buddy. We carry 6 tanks each. We lowered everything in the cave. We hit the water, and don't get me wrong, we already checked everything. And all of a sudden, 1 or 2 things fail, and we look at each other and we packed our stuff and we pulled everything out and we said, not today. Let's go for pastry and cappuccino. And that is the I think one of the lessons of cave diving. It makes us more conscientious diver. We're not daredevils. We're planners. We're capable of saying, not today, not even tomorrow. It's going to have to wait for this reason, that reason, whatever it is. So that when we are in there, we're also mentally capable, physically able to handle the situation. Cave diving in itself is, people say, it's so dangerous. It's not. It's us humans that make it dangerous with our unbalanced and incorrect decisions. When we put ego before safety, when we put personal, like satisfactions before what is actually positive outcome.
So do you think cave diving challenge you mentally and physically more than shark diving?
That's a good question. My mom, funny enough, she's more worried when I go diving in caves than when I go diving with sharks.
I understand her.
But yes and no. So, and this is a general conversation, and it's not to scare anyone about anything. But in shark diving, if you think about it, there are actually more variables that are out of our personal control, including the animals. We discussed the sharks have personalities. The sharks change according to the weather or the inputs that have been given to them before or after our presence. Was somebody fishing close by? Did they become agitated? What time of the year it is? Is it a hurricane coming? Never mind, we're in the ocean. So there's currents, there's waves, there's lightning storm. There's things that actually can change drastically in a way that in a cave, to me, don't change. The most variable fact in a cave is actually me, you, right? So the challenge that I find into the cave is that in shark diving, I'm almost outward. I'm almost like a bat. I have to constantly go check, 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 like my surrounding, my environment, the sharks, how is it swimming? What are they doing? Who's behind me? And all of that. In cave diving, it becomes more inside. And it comes from within. How do I feel? How is my heartbeat? How is my breathing? Am I tired? And then it goes into how is my rebreather working? How is my dry suit? Then into the cave and into the line. So it comes first from within and then goes into without. But the human factor is, I would say, extremely much higher than with sharks, where in sharks there's all these other factors that are and a little bit out of our control. Let's face it, right? A lightning storm here, you know how quickly in the Bahamas you go down with the sunshine, you come back
I
in a
know.
lightning storm. I mean, I've done shark dive where I came out and I usually joke, I get out of the chainmail as fast as Bruce Almighty out of his clothes during the movie, and I'm just like,
I know, but for example, like what I'm like more like when we're scuba diving, if something fails, for example, in the open ocean, gear can fail. You can access directly to the surface like you do assist or whatever the case might be. But I feel if you do a mistake while you're cave diving, you don't have that like exit plan if something gets to fail.
well, we do have the exit plan. Absolutely, we do the exit plan. Is a complex, a much more complex plan, and is based on redundancy. That's one, for example. So we carry two, sometimes three of something, right? So you have two cutting devices, two computers. If I'm using the rebreather, I have a backup system, which is my open circuit. But then I have to learn to manage my gas so that I know if I'm within a certain distance from the entrance, I may need 3 tanks to come out or 2 tanks to come out. Again, this is all experience. So that is our exit plan, right? Together with the training. So how to follow the line, how to mark your way out. Like we bring breadcrumbs and we leave them behind to mark our way in the cave. So there are those ways to do it. It's just a little bit different. But at the end of the day, if you think about it, in the ocean, yes, your resolution is a little bit faster. But we never really teach divers, hey, if you run out of air, shoot for the surface as fast as you can. We actually tell the divers, hey, if you have a regulator issues, turn to your body and share air with your body. Now, the exit with your body is the length of your depth, 60 feet, 100 feet. We're talking about recreational divers here. Like, so it's not that we change that much. It's just the resolution takes longer. And that is where I was talking about the mindset that we foster in cave training, which is the mindset of saying, well, I have a problem. I'm going to deal with the problem, not for 3 minutes of ascent. I have to deal with it for 30 minutes, an hour and a half. But we also put the divers that we train into cave diving. When I train my divers in cave diving, we don't put you on a 3 hour away from the surface resolution on your first 10th, 30th dive. Do you understand? We put you within 15, 20, 25 minutes resolutions, and we work on those and we repeat on those so that eventually we do progressive learning of dealing with the if at a further distance. But the other thing is, and so here's the other thing, right? How many times, let's be honest here, how many times have you gone on a boat and looked at professional dive gears that leaks and pops and is slightly not working, or the instructor that dives with the inflator hose not connected because the inflator hose itself inflates, but they don't want to change it? And I know, I managed dive staff for 26 years. And that was my pet peeve. I would walk on the boat and I would see, like the BCD completely nice set up, and then it will be like this, and I'm kind of like, change the hose. So in recreational divers, a lot of divers do basically what we call normalizations deviance, right? They deviate from what are the rules and they get away with it.
Yeah, exactly.
In cave diving, we don't do that. Little bubbles, if I put my tank in the water before the dive and there's little tiny bubbles that come from the O-ring that is sealed inside my tank valve, I take a minute more, I pull my tank out, I remove the regulator, I clean it again, I re-clean again the O-ring. If I need to, I'll go back to the car, I change the O-ring, and maybe I already tested this before, right? And then I change it and I go back in the water. And that is the other thing. We do not break rules. When we establish gas turnaround is gas turnaround. We say there's no goal-oriented dives. Now, you can have a project. Evan and I go in, we want to try to map this section of the cave. Let's say this is one of the things we would like to do. However, for whatever reason, as we go towards that area, either we consume more gas or we have an issue or something happens. That's it. We turn around and we come out. So there's no goal-oriented dives. We have an intent, a project, but nothing surpasses the we are going out now. Not in 10 minutes, not in 2 minutes, not in 3 minutes. It's one of my biggest pet peeves when I'm out in the open ocean. I tell divers, and they give me the up back, and then they keep on swimming with the camera. And it's just kind of like, no, 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 no.
I mean,
Up now. You look at me, up now. When I give you this, because it comes from my cave diving background. And I've been on dives where I still had 1900 PSI of gas in my tank. Maybe I was in a group somewhere. I've been diving in Cocos or Socorro, and I go as a guest, and I'm diving in groups where, dive guide goes up. And I look down and I have 2000 PSI in my air, but it's a group, or we're doing a drift dive or something happens. You know what? I'm going up. And so it's a different mindset as well from that point of view. And I do apologize. I know I keep comparing to the recreational diving world, but sometimes the recreational diving world or divers are so afraid of cave diving, but they don't realize how much more trained and mentally, basically adapted we have become to entering that world. That's the reason why the training is longer. That's the reason why it is equipment intensive. That's the reason why it is expensive, because life is precious. So we want to make this a safe, comfortable environment. And we have been able to do that from the forefathers, Shaq Hexley's back in the mid 70s when, 30, 40 people died a year in some of the caves in Florida, to where we are now. And the amount of cave divers that cave dive every year, we have a very, very high safety record. The issue that you have with cave diving is something happens in a cave, it goes everywhere, right?
no, exactly. You think it's like a little bit in that sense, like a little bit like sharks. Like personally, I watch all the documentaries with caves. I know you know the movies. You think they had played a role into people fearing cave diving?
A little bit. Even what happened in Thailand is
With the
become
kids, yeah.
Well, when I talk about cave diving, you hear, remember what happened in Thailand? So what happened in Thailand was not cave diving. What happened in Thailand was not cave diving. It was a school group that went into a dry cave that suffered of a flash flood. And thanks to cave divers,
They will
they
come
came out alive.
alive.
Thanks to those people, like Rick Stanton or Dr. Richard Harris, or that actually had the repetition, the skills, the mindset, the capability. These are friends of the industry. I sat at the table with them to this day. I'm sitting there, my heart hurts knowing what they had to go mentally, never mind physically, mentally through to accomplish what we did. But that what happened to the kids was not cave diving. Cave diving is what saved the kids. These people that were extremely highly trained, that completed, dedicated their lifetime to be responsible, educated, trained cave divers, executed an absolute miracle.
Do you think any person can be a cave diver, or what mindset somebody have to become a cave diver? Talking about if you're already a scuba diver.
There is a physical need, so everybody could become a cave diver, but obviously there's a physical need, which is skills. Buoyancy, trim, propulsion, you have to have the skills, and you can get away from those. But the skills, I always say, I can teach you skills, I can teach you knowledge. The mindset is what we call is the attitude.
Yeah,
An
that's one.
attitude not in the water, not in the trim. Attitude, which is the internal motivation of being a cave diver, of being a diver, why you're doing it. We have positive motivations, curiosity, growth, wanted to learn about history, improving yourself, exploring, discover something different. We have also negative motivations. People that do it for the satisfy their ego. People that do it as what we call the big boy syndrome. I am better than thou. People that do it because it's perceived as dangerous. So by doing something so dangerous, they feel more fulfilled into themselves. So there are people that are not designed to be cave divers because they have the incorrect motivations. Once they fix their motivations, they could be cave divers. But I think the mindset specifically is if there's a place where stop, breathe, think, act, it's fundamental is cave diving. Everything is done on you have to stop. You have to think about it. You have to react in the correct way. None of it is instinctual. We talked about this before. There's no underwater instincts. Not for us humans. Maybe the Remipedia has some underwater instincts, but not as humans. We have zero underwater instincts. So when we're doing cave diving, we train those underwater instincts to be correct, to respond to the situation in a cave. And so the training is longer. The dedication is much higher. There is new fashions of people going cave diving once or twice a year, but back when I started, cave diving became a lifestyle, almost like if you talk to the original surfers. The surfers, they say it's a lifestyle. You live with the surf, you look at the oceans, you also sit on shore with the surf in your hands going, not today. And so I think the mindset of a cave diver is that one. It's a lifestyle. It's just something together with the cave. It's understanding that you might go somewhere and it might happen, not today, and it's okay.
And Christina, can you describe me the feeling you get when you are deep inside of a cave system?
My feelings?
Yeah, like what do you feel? Can you describe what is that feeling?
One of the things I love about cave diving is that it completely and utterly forces me to sit in the now. So I don't need to be deep inside a cave system. I could be 100 feet from the entrance, 200 feet from the entrance. I just need to be in a cave. But the cave really, in a certain way, no pun intended, but grounds me. And I personally feel very calm, very peaceful. I feel present. And I feel that anything else, the weight of the world, the worries of my life, sometimes even the heartbreaks, are separated from me with the layers of rocks that is right above me. So it keeps everything out. So for me, cave diving is that. And then it keeps me very alert into my curiosity of what I see. what's experiencing, what's going on. But I think it also teaches me personally is very much a self-awareness, because when I'm cave diving, I'm constantly thinking, okay, did I have let's say I have a little headache. It's like, was it there before? Is it starting? Is it getting worse? How's my heartbeat? How do I feel? And so very much a self-understanding, and ultimately a self-forgiving, right? It's just like at a certain point you can say, and I'm done. What it requires cave diving in a certain way is realizing before is too late, that maybe you need to turn around now so that you can actually successfully make it out without becoming too tired, too dehydrated, too whatever it is. And so very much a self-awareness. When in cave diving, I'm curious, I'm happy, I'm excited, but I'm very much in the now.
It sounds super interesting. It's almost like in cave diving, you have to be true to yourself and listen to your body. Like it's something like I think in the world, we are constantly not. We are in social media, we are seeing other people, we are so much stimulation around us. Like we don't listen to ourselves. But what you described it for me is like all this like meditation books I read and everything, the power of being the present or now and listening to your body. I guess like you get to those states, I think, when you're cave diving.
Yes, I think you actually express it really well, is that capability of like self-awareness. I would totally agree with what you just said. I think it's a gift in a way. There's no, you have to be true to yourself. And when you're not true to yourself, when we talk, like I said, the ego or the self-threat or the goal oriented or anything like that, the pressure, then that is when you end up in more
In
trouble
problems, like
and
because in like
problems.
in a regular basis, for example, I'm tired but I can keep running and my body is telling me it's done, but I keep running because it's okay. But I feel like maybe with your cave training you have to, if you don't listen to your body or respect your limits, you will put yourself in danger, and that's
Correct. There is obviously there is a threshold that you can build, right? There's a mindset that you can build. Eventually you can work through some of those, but you have to listen to yourself regardless of that. And the other thing I think that maybe the industry should learn a little bit more, and I wish, there's some people that have done that successfully, and I think it is more, is that sometimes when you push a little bit, when you come out, you say, yeah, that one was a little bit too much, and you express it to yourself, you debrief it with your body. There's no, pointing fingers, there's no ridiculing, there's no accusations, but it's to say, note to self, that one was maybe a little bit too much. And I'll give you an example so that I'm going to be the first one. We were doing exploration of two of the caves that we discovered in 2020. And I was doing reconnaissance of the line. So I basically laid about 4,600 feet. And then I found the loop that came back around. So it went this way and then back around on a different line. And I told Kevin, I said, I'm just going to swim. So we're looking about 8,000 and 200 feet swim between going in and out. I was on a rebreather, and I said, all I'm going to do is go down the line and see if I can find pockets where maybe there's other tunnels. That's how you do exploration. And I did that, and I started swimming, but I also kept laying the line and coming back, and then laying the line and coming back. So I was looking for what we call leads. Right. So this is exploration cave diving, not regular cave diving. And then laying the line and coming back. And at a certain point, I'm like, okay, I'm 3 hours and 45 minutes into my cave dive, time to start heading out. And once I started heading out, it was not the 9,200 feet that I had been swimming. I already been swimming 9,000 feet. And so I had another 4,000 to go. And I remember coming out in the last 20 minutes of coming out thinking, I am exhausted. I was so exhausted. And I was just like, all right, pause. And then I was like, I was looking at the decoration and going, kick, there, kick, stop. Next, go, one more. And so instead of going faster, I actually went slower. I paced myself. But that was very much, quote unquote, a mistake I made. Right. Because my plan was I'm going to do the line, but I didn't take into consideration all the leads that I will go and check. Right. So when I come out, I immediately told Kevin. I was on a reconnaissance dive by myself. Kevin was expecting a different part of the cave, which not a conversation about the decision of going solo during exploration, not during cave diving, during exploration. I openly told them this. And I'm sharing with you and I'm sharing with the public because it was very much one of those write it in the books, Christina, and remember. And what was the miscalculation is I had not done 9,200 feet round trip, but I've done over, you know, 13, 14,000 feet of swimming. And so what I should have done is should have done progressive parts, back, go out, go in further, check in the back there, come out. And instead of just doing a whole loop, right? And so I think there's also in cave diving the knowledge and understanding that we can share what are no moments to learn from without recrimination. Right? And it takes a very mature mind to sit there and going like, that didn't work. And so we can learn and share it. I joined Stratis Cassis, a cave diver, a technical instructor, and he wrote a book called Close Calls. And he asked quite a lot of people in the industry to share one of the close calls. And when he asked me, there was all these very, very famous people that were contributing. I was just very honored. I'm like, sure. And then I was sitting at home going, do I really want to share my close call? Do I really want to share when I had a misjudgment in my call, but I got away with it? And it's just like, yes, because that close call was my turning point to go and seek technical training. It was many, many years back. And I think that is part of cave diving, the debrief part of saying, at a certain point during the dive, I felt this, and you share it and you discuss it. And is it okay? How do we get over that? How do we deal with that? Do we cut back a little bit on the dives? Is a big part also of the training with my students. I come out of the cave and I ask them, I said, usually they're all ready to tell you what they did wrong. I usually say, what went well? What didn't go so well? What did you like? What didn't you like? And we have an open conversation. And then I give them my debrief and my point of view. And it's an open conversation on those factors.
And it's amazing because you also sharing with others can teach and prevent others to do the same mistake, I guess.
Absolutely. When I teach and when we teach, what we try to do is to share things that happen. In the old days used to be what is called accident analysis, which used to analyze the cave diving fatalities. But other things that I've accumulated through the years, I also try to share mistakes that I've seen done, for example, by dive buddies, or mistakes that I've seen done by students, or mistakes that I have done that I have survived, but that also it created this mindset, this enormous bag of experience that I carry with me from which I can pick out should something happen. And I think that is the part of cave diving that maybe people don't understand. It's not like you learn cave diving, you're 5,000 feet inside the cave. If you're 300 feet inside the cave, consider yourself extremely far in on a beginner's cave diver.
Christina, I want to ask you, how do you prepare when you're doing this map or exploration into cave diving? Because personally, I've been in blue holes, especially in Andros, and some of them like are kind of connected and they have crazy currents. And one of the first things preparing this interview for me was like how she knows when she's going to explore a new cave that it doesn't have no connection with the oil or the tides or can suck or can have tight space so you can put yourself in a dangerous situation.
Good. That's a good question because I mean, in 2012, I was the first one to connect a land-based cave with an ocean blue hole, and at a certain point, the currents changed. A lot of it is research. We start at home. We start with looking where the possible cave could be. Let's say we found the water. When you go inside, you look at simple things like maybe particles that are floating in front of you, and you start analyzing like that, and you continuously check the data. Preparation start physically on being physically rested, maybe if especially if you're going on a cave exploration, right? So new cave or anything like that, maybe the night before you shouldn't be going out and party, not that we do it anyway, but it's an easy nice rest, is maybe an easy food night as well, so you have like a very basic traditional what you're used to eating. Kevin and I tend to eat the same thing all the time anyway, but you condition yourself into having like that rest and the stomach ready, hydrated, And then the gear, I mean, we usually prepare the gear the day before in what could be the possible expectation. But primarily, you prepare yourself with saying, I'm going in and I'm also coming out. Meaning, if I go in and the conditions are not what we expected, something changes. We didn't expect to find a current. We didn't expect to find this. We didn't expect to find that. We can also come out, regroup, and say, okay, for this one, we're actually going to need this or we're going to need that. To again mindset, but from a physical mental point of view is, rest, hydration, make sure maybe it's not the night to go and eat Indian food or anything like that, and make sure that obviously your gear works, your dry suit if you're using one, your regulators, everything is in perfect order. You charge your lights, you have kind of like a plan like that.
And is there a particular cave exploration story that really sticks with you?
Particular cave, what kind of story? Like I think so many.
The
I mean, I
first one
think
that comes to your mind.
I would say the fact that I actually in my career connected two different cave systems in two different places that famous cave explorers said they do not connect. It's impossible to connect. Rob Palmer dived a chimney blue hole, and he actually said this is the most dangerous cave in the world. It has a phenomenal vortex. It's just very much a siphoning current when it's siphoning in, and extremely powerful current when it's blowing out. And in 2012, I actually I called it the connection that didn't exist, because everybody
Wow.
was just like, yeah, there's these two holes, but they don't connect. And I was just kind of like, are you sure? And the other one, I connected another system, still from Rob Palmer, Gemini into Aquarius. And when you read his book, he's coming from Aquarius trying to find a way to Gemini, get stuck into this tiny little hole where I actually found this line. And super, I don't know how we ended up in there. I went through it once and I was just like, right, okay, I run the line through there, never again. But in there, he basically comes out and says, no, there's no way. And I actually connected those in 2016. So those are two of the accomplishments. What I love is, mind you, in 2020, we found two brand new virgin caves, which is incredible. In 2020, on an island that had quite a history of cave exploration, Evan and I found two new cave systems and laid over 15 miles of lines. And that in itself is amazing. But to me, for me, what I'm happy with is when you go in a cave that is being dived over and over and over again, and everybody has gone in there, and you go in there, and all of a sudden, because you've been in there so much, the cave goes, hey, psst, this way. And you find, like Ben's Cave, we found 6,000 new feet of cave. The old Freetown system, which has 1984 duct tape in it that says the divers were here in 1984. I was 13 years old at the time. I don't know how old were you, or if you just a thought at the time.
Yeah, what's that?
You were a thought. Okay. I was 13 years old. You were a thought. In 1984, there was divers in that cave. Through the years, everybody's gone in that cave. And all of a sudden, in 2019, I go in and I look left and I look right, and everybody went this way, and I expanded the cave completely this way. Those are the stories that I'm can I use the word proud of? And I've been in this case where everybody else has been in, and all of a sudden I turn around and there's more cave.
What it made you so sure, like, did these two, the caves that you were talking earlier that connected while everybody was telling you they were not connected? What it made you so sure that you still went and it didn't matter the opinion of others?
Well, part of it is a survey. When you go inside a cave and lay line and you start surveying, you can actually start seeing on the map where the cave is going, the direction where the tunnels are going. But there were signs in it. When the hole was blowing, the land hole was actually siphoning. That tells me that there's water coming from one side of the island and is flowing through the land hole that it keeps flowing towards the ocean hole. So the water was having this continuous direction. So it's telling me it was just like is hydrostatically coming here, coming through, and it keeps on going. So if it keeps on going, is that there's a signs, for example, uh, transfer of could be sometimes pollution, right? So something has been siphoned in physically and is present in a cave that it should not be there unless it comes, let's say, from the ocean or it comes from the land, but it's in the ocean. Does that make sense? but there's also other, some of it is a little bit of just a smudge, not much of stubbornness.
Okay.
But there is also what I call the cave speaks to me, is listening to the environment that you're in and figuring out clues and information. There's also caves where I said, I've been trying to find it. I know it connects, but maybe I can't physically fit through. And that is part also the understanding. The old Freetown system has sargassum eels in it at the entrance that come in and reproduce. Well, obviously they're coming from the ocean, but I haven't seen a blue hole out in front of this cave system, nor there's anything that goes towards the ocean. So chances are that maybe the tunnels are about this big. So the sargassum eels makes it, but as humans don't even, never mind, can swim through it, don't even see it, don't even find
Yeah.
it.
That's and Christina, this question, I want you to break it out for me. What are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about cave diving and cave diving exploration?
So I think the big misconceptions is they confuse cave diving and cave exploration. Right, they're two totally different fields. So cave diving, cave divers are trained and go into caves that have been explored that presents lines that they can navigate. So basically, there's people before them that said, "Sure, this is a cave where you can go in with this gear configuration at this level. You need this, you need that." So there's information. So exploration, and that's what sometimes a lot of times I do, is really knowing going where no man has gone before. And so there are all those extra maybe variables that could be a little bit more detrimental if you're not experienced. But I think from a cave diving point of view, the biggest misconceptions I get is I don't want to go in a super tight space and have to remove my gear. And my answer is, trust me, neither do I want you to do that. So in cave diving, when we cave dive in, the rule is you go where your gear allows you to fit in. There's no gear removal. It takes a very long time to go into what are the cave dives where some of the gear is removed. Maybe the tankers sling forward into a side mount. Somebody that does a cave diver course in a side mount configuration are not allowed to sling their tanks forward up to 100 cave dives. So they're cave divers in a side mount configuration. They're not side mount cave divers. Side mount cave diving, which is a specialty, like in open water, in advance you have the night, the deep, the wreck. Side mount cave diving comes 100 cave dives, and that's when you start going into areas where maybe you require to do one cylinder swing forward. Same as tight spaces. You'll notice that one of the requirements of cavern, to cave and full cave says no restrictions. Divers need to be able to come out without having to do gear removal. So they can come out this way, or they can come out this way. They can also come out this way, or come out this way, or come out this way, but there's no restrictions. And I think that is the biggest misconceptions. We don't try to go into the tiniest tunnels available. Even during exploration, it's very natural as a cave explorers to go big tunnel, tiny hole, big tunnel first. I'm going to go down the big tunnel as far as I can. Then I'm going to find the tributaries. Then eventually I'll go, oh, well, yeah, there's another hole there. I'm going to go and check that one out. So I think that's one. The other one is very much is compared to open ocean diving, and it's not. Is very, very different. It requires a different gear configuration, require a different kind of training. It requires a different mindset, skills, and knowledge. So you can compare it to open ocean diving.
I'd say also like cave diving is dangerous. I think will that be a misconception under your eyes too? Diving is dangerous.
Cave diving is dangerous when you're not trained, when you're not prepared, when you don't have the correct gear. One of the most dangerous people that we find in cave diving is open water scuba instructors, because they're on their top of the game in the open ocean, and then they go in a cave thinking, why would I do, this training or that training or this gear? And I mean, I've had a couple of examples on this island that go in with a single tank and they think they could do that. So cave diving is potentially dangerous. It is a dangerous sport when not approached with the correct mindset, gear, training. But it is a misconception, because it's like saying, well, flying a plane is dangerous. It's like, well, yeah, if you put me behind the wheel for sure. But before you fly a plane, there's a lot of work that you have to do. And I think cave diving is way safer than flying a plane. But that's a personal opinion. But yeah, it could be considered a misconception. I think that The other misconception is that cave divers, more than cave diving is dangerous, cave divers are thrill seekers.
Thrill
That is
seeker?
thrill
Okay,
seekers,
yeah, yeah.
those
Looking for the rush.
looking for the rush. We are not. And I can give you a plethora of lines of students that I've had through the years. My number one type of students are usually engineers, doctors, accountants, people that are very mind focused, educated, interested, right? We're not daredevils. We're not thrill seekers. I think that is the biggest misconception. We're actually very, what would be another word I'm trying to find? Very meticulous in our preparation. We're very demanding to ourselves. We're very demanding of the performance that we're about to do. That is actually more the kind of people that you'll find cave diving, not, the Red Baron.
Good. And what role do caves and freshwater systems play in the health of our oceans?
Oof, caves in the Bahamas. So first of all, there are freshwater reservoirs because the rainwater that falls down in the Bahamas, it filters through the limestone, which is a natural filters, and deposit itself on top of the salt water. So in a country without mountains, rivers, glaciers, lakes, we actually have fresh drinking water coming out of the tap. And Grand Bahama suffered a big blow after Dorian because the ocean came over the island, went through the limestone and displaced the freshwater lens. And it might take 10 years for that freshwater lens to come back because the higher density water pushed it through its way through and moved it, obviously not in that fast movement, but after the hurricane, we had 22,000 ppm coming out of the tab.
So what is ppm?
Parts per millions of minerals. So the
Okay.
ocean is considered ocean water 33,000 to 34,000. We have 22,000. Drinkable water has to be below 500
Okay.
parts per million. There's a little analyzer you can buy and go underneath. I remember taking a shower and going, it's kind of salty today. So I came from the ocean and took a shower and then it was still salty. So freshwater reservoir, one. Two, because they are natural filter, I call them the subway of the natural world. I was just recently in New York and we were just going, there's like 4 layers in New York, subways and bus system is insane, but they take you everywhere. And caves do the same. They take everything and everyone everywhere. So I can pollute 6, 8 miles inside Grand Bahama Island, but if it hits a cave system, that cave would either flow south or north or east or west and carry that. And a lot of them, now I've proven it many, many times already, pop out into blue holes. Where are blue holes? Well, blue holes are in creeks, mangroves. What's in there? Breeding grounds, nursery grounds, baby corals, baby sharks, fish that then goes out in the ocean, like all the silver sides, all the tarpons, all the bonefish that then will feed bigger predators. So I can be dumping something in the middle of the forest of Grand Bahama Island and not realize that actually that eventually will affect the fish. That then maybe I go out and fish to sustain my family or to put on my plate that is carrying some of the pollutants that I just dumped somewhere into the bush. Biggest problem I think we have in the Bahamas is this disconnect. Everybody's just toss everything in the bush, thinking out of sight, out of mind. And it's just coming back. It's just cycling back into our water, cycling back into the food that some people eat, a lot of the fish, right? But it's cycling back in forms of pollutants that are everywhere. They literally permeate our living, our lives, because they go through this terrain that is like a beautiful, solid rock sponge. And so we don't realize how much damage we're doing to ourselves because we don't just do the damage here. It just travels, it goes everywhere. And so it can reach as far as these caves go.
So everything literally is connected. I
Yes.
think the problem is because we cannot see it. And also, I think I imagine with caves, if we already have not seen much of the ocean and the water world, I imagine with caves, it's so hard for the people kind of map it or understand that everything
Yes.
is connected.
Well, that's the biggest part of the work that we've been doing for the Bahama National Trust, and not work, sorry, volunteering and all of that is collecting these maps, providing data, bringing up interactive maps, 3D maps, 360. We're working on 360 so people can actually start seeing, surfacing the images, even some of the creative images, through that people realize that, yes, it's a little bit out of sight, but it should not be out of mind. And maybe they become a little bit more enamored, aware, and capable of understanding how, I call it the interconnectivity of water project, which is what we're working, is trying to show that people go, how do you relate sharks with caves? It's like, well, sharks are being protected, but we need to protect where they keep their babies, where their food is, where the rest of the fish is. Sharks need a reef. Sharks need sponges. Sharks need everything else. So to protect everything else, we need to protect where it comes from and where it goes. And caves are this subway of our natural world. They've been defined as a circulatory system of our world. You eat a donut is not just a flavor and the pleasure that you have in your mouth. That donut is going to go somewhere, trust me.
So this is the way you kind of connect your work underwater in case with your shark conservation
Yes.
history.
Yes, it's a bigger picture. If you poison the snails in your garden, you will eventually affect your fresh drinking water and the fish that you put on your table. What a concept. It's like, what? What are you talking about, Christina? And it's just like, absolutely. And you don't even have to be close to caves to understand that. If there's anyone in that listens to your podcast that is in a city, New York City, Chicago, whatever it is, next time it snows and the snow melts, or next time it rains and you watch the water going through the drain and there's a cup that is rolling through the drain, or the water that is rolling, picking up the diesel and the fuel and all of that, where does it go? Well, it goes to the river or on the ground. And then it goes into the river. And where does it go from the river? Well, it goes into the ocean. Caves are unfortunately even more subtle transport system of what we're doing. And like you said, they very much suffer of, we can't see it. So Kevin and I have been very much working on trying to bring them up. And that's part of a lot of like very much my passion on the side. I teach cave diving. That's part of my making a living. But all this stuff that we're doing on the side is doing done on our own time, own money, own kind of like medias, cameras,
Resources. I see.
resources.
And I saw like recently actually very incredible images of you like in doing a photo shoot with dress in a cave. Can you tell me a little bit how was the process? And like, well, I guess you already answered my question about what was the mesa beyond, but if you can like go a little bit deeper into that.
So we realized that even the cave diver, you can do a pretty picture of a cave, with lights and all of that. But once you have a cave diver in it, it still has that kind of feel. And so we thought, how do we soften the concept of the cave? And so what if we bring up something that is a little bit more familiar with it? And that's when we transferred into giving, first of all, a story to the pictures, a message, but doing it with the hair out and the dress so that people might fall in love with the landscape. Just yesterday, we gifted one of the prints that we created of Samad, very dear to us on the island, and it's called Inner Glow. I'll send you the picture so you can actually show it maybe during the podcast. But it's basically me in a lace blue dress floating next to a stalactite and with a glow, like the light is behind the stalactite and it glows. It's a dreamlike. And so it makes people go, whoa. So when we presented them with these pictures, that it kept telling us how much they loved it and how much they loved it and how much they loved it, finally printed it on canvas for them and gave it. They were like, so what is the concept behind that? They asked once again. We went from talking about the stalactite to the crystal, to the fresh water, to the communication of the caves, to the importance of this into the ocean. And so it was an hour conversation on me in a lace blue dress next to a glowing stalactite about ocean, sharks, and fish conservation. And that's where it all started. So we want to soften this concept, maybe bring people a little bit closer to go, but what is that all about?
Yeah, definitely catch the eye. Like definitely a lot of people will think that's Photoshop. For sure I will put it there. But it's good for them to know it's not Photoshop. You did it actually in one like snap, and definitely brings a lot of attention. And I think that's like brilliant how you say you soften the cave diving with that? Because the picture is super beautiful. It's like magical. It's fairy tale. It's full of like, it is not this like a scary kind of underwater world. It's
No.
like magical. So you,
Actually, let's do this. Kevin, can I have the Midsummer Night Dream, please? It's a Midsummer Night Dream. So, I'm going to try to explain a little bit, but basically, what you see here are the glowing stalactites, right?
Mhm.
So, Kevin had to 3D print. Talk about every time he comes up with an idea that we need something, he goes, "It's for work." Right. So, we end up purchasing a 3D printer, and then he designed tripods to put behind the decorations to make them glow. Right.
that's incredible.
And that is me, right? As you can see in a dress. By the way, we outsource the dresses at the Humane Society, secondhand, second chest. So all the money goes towards sort of dog protection. But like that is a cave, right? But
Yeah.
all of a sudden there's a woman in a white dress. And so the concept is called Midsummer's Night Dream. I cannot even show it to you completely.
But I will show, after you send me the picture, I will put
Yeah.
it
But it's
for
really
sure.
cool, right?
It's
Especially when you
super.
have it this
It's
big, because I was so happy that it was so big. And it's just like all of a sudden it has a dreamlike feel to it. But you're so good. I really honestly I have to praise you on your questions. I'm pretty sure I've done over 100 TV programs in all parts of the world. I mean, I even participated in a TV program in Georgia, not Georgia, United States, Georgia in the old USSR. So in the old Russia, like the state of Georgia in
I
Russia.
don't even know where it is. Sorry,
You
my
Google.
yeah.
I've done programs for Brazil, for France, for Italy, for Germany, you name it, right? But the way you have done your research, both for sharks, which maybe it was easier, but for caves and the questions, somebody needs to give you a TV program.
Oh, thank you, Chris.
Thank yourself. You have to thank yourself, your curiosity, your passion, your dedication for what you have done. And there's a reason why, I'm here again. It's just like, yeah, I think you're absolutely awesome. Honestly, your research and dedication and the way you're running these podcasts are really spot on, really well done. It's such a pleasure. We need to do a third one. I don't know what going to talk about, but we'll figure it out.
No, we will. I will. We have so much more. I already have pointers of things like I would like to explore on a third episode. Don't worry. So much.
Third episode it is.
Okay, let me get back. So we talk about we were about your cave diving and the
Sometimes it's very hard to put into words. A lot of people just see me as, the shark person or, oh, you just love sharks. Could you? Somebody asked me, would you ever see yourself able to live without sharks? And it's just like, how do you ask someone, would you ever be able to see yourself living without your loved one? And it's just like, well, no, I don't sit here thinking the day, my parents are gone, or I don't sit here the day I'm thinking, my dogs will be gone. What we do in life is we learn to live without them, but it's not by choice. So it's not that I'm thinking there's like, oh yeah, I could see myself living without sharks. I could see living myself without. And I think part of the misconception about me is just like, it's not that I live in these boxes or these labels. What I do is a lifestyle. And my life is going diving with sharks and going and exploring caves, but then teaching and then walking the beach and picking up a piece of plastic or trying to train someone. And it's all very much interconnected. In a certain way, same as you do. We made a life choices to stay in the place that we love so much and live and work within it with the good and the bad, the advantages and the disadvantages, the things that works and the things that don't. And I think that is a part of the message that I want to try to tell people is my life is not compartmentalized. I think I pronounced the word incorrectly, but like it's not in boxes. My life,
labels.
it's not labeled. It's this fluid, and I can go 2 weeks without seeing the sharks because I'm involved in a cave exploration, or I can go 2 weeks without going cave diving because I am running, like a sail through the Bahamas to go diving with sharks. But all of it for me is still very much
It's
interconnected.
definitely good what you're saying because for me it's the same. And when you're not like diving, and I can go and explore a mountain and I feel the same connection and I learning something different. As you say, it's like a lifestyle, and it's like everything is connected. Like now you were saying the caves and the ocean, the caves with the sharks. It's not like one or the other. You are not either or a shark diver or a cave diver, or you don't want to be recognized one on top of the other one, but more like a
Together. It's a together. Correct. Yes. God, you're
But I
good.
think society now these days is like labels are like it's easier for people to understand. Think that, but everything has to be labeled, like and that's what like a lot of collapses are also
It's
happening.
very true. I followed this kind of like this leader from India. She's really, really amazing. And she actually said there's a zebra story. The question to the zebra. I once asked to a zebra, are you white with black stripes or are you black with white stripes? And so the zebra answered back, are you good with some bad days or are you bad with some good days? Or are you living a happy life with some unhappy moments, or you're living an unhappy life with some happy moments? And at the end of the day, is neither or, is not the stripes which color, if it is both of them go together. And I think that is part of what maybe sometimes is missed is conservation. Let's talk about conservation, and then we leave it at this. It's not waking up in the morning and doing a little post or doing a little things. Conservation comes with the good and the bad. Conservation comes with trying to do the best, like maybe I'm not going to use this, I'm not going to do that, but also knowing that the world is designed to force me sometimes to use this or use that. We're on an island, everything is imported. It's very hard to find farmed vegetables, and the amount of vegetables I eat, we went to the farmers market, there's not enough to supplement a whole week. So you end up going to the supermarket. Well, how did this stuff come in? Well, it came in, like the carrots are in a plastic bag and the salad is a plastic bag. And sometimes people go, oh no, you're not supposed to talk about that. And it's just like, well, no, it is a part of the problems that we have. So we go to the farmer's market, but there's not enough. And so we supplement. And that's what it is. And it's not good or bad. Is you do what you can with what you have in the place that you're in.
You have
And
to
you do your
adapt,
best.
kind of. You have to adapt with what is there.
Yes.
And Christina, you told me like you started cave diving almost at the same time as the shark diving.
2 years. I mean, I discovered cavern diving as my 11th dive, but like, I became a cave diver in April 1996.
Okay, so 2 years, but still, like you have a long story of cave diving. What cave diving taught you the importance about preserving these ecosystems? Like, not go, taking like from your perspective.
Well, cave diving is the one that has shown me how actually human presence can very much alter an environment, because caves being such a more stable environment, right? Where I said the changes that happen within a cave by natural causes are extremely slow. As a diver in the 30 years, actually the changes have been physically visible. So they actually taught me, these changes have taught me that humans are affecting the environment that they're in. And there's no dispute. Earlier on, I said, you can dispute that or not. I said climate change is a natural event, but humans are affecting the environments that we're in, and we are exasperating the changes.
100%.
We are exasperating the changes, whatever you want to consider good or bad, but the changes are way faster than what it was in a natural TikTok time.
And you feel like cave diving show you this more deeply than you could have learned if you just dove in the open ocean?
Yes, because like I said, the cave diving environment has a more stable presence. Now, because I dived for 30 years in the same reef, I can also tell you which coral head physically died, coral head by coral head. However, in general, cave diving has more of a, say, stable baseline to which every single change is way more drastic and visible within sometimes even weeks or months. From one event to the other, when Dorian hit and you went through the cave, there was very much a ton of changes. Mind you, Dorian also changed on the outside of the island, but it took a while for some of the consequences to be visible. Where in the cave, it was physically present, including giant boulders dislodged from the ceiling and crashed into the middle of the tunnels. So that means there was huge amount of water that went through those caves during the war. Nobody will think that, but
Has cave diving changed the way you see yourself as a person?
that's the thing. I don't. No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't really sit there and trying to see myself as a person. I think life has changed how I position myself as a person in relation to the world. But more than cave diving or shark diving, the age has softened me a little, just a little, in the way I approach conversation or approach discussions or approach way to explain certain things. I think I used to be maybe a little bit more direct or cutthroat, where with time, maybe, I don't know, maybe through KW or meeting people, I've learned that sometimes a soft approach or a slower approach or a small gain and a small change is better than a no gain or no change because it's not big enough based on my expectations. And I think we go back here to social media. You do something, and everybody's like, it's not enough. And it's just kind of like, it's better than nothing. And so I think that has changed in me through the years. It's just like every win is a win.
Okay. But you mentioned also earlier that you feel like cave diving kind of humbles people because you need to make the decision and have this talk. Do you think that also like reflected in your own experience?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that humbling, that capabilities of saying, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Transferred on a surface, absolutely, definitely has changed. That has given me a different perspective on life. I guess it's been such a. Somebody wrote today, I think, the cutest comment ever. They wrote, "You're not instant coffee." It says you are the results of your dedication, passion, repetition, presence over 3 decades. And so your questions, the answer might be yes, but like a cave, maybe I've eroded and changed slowly, slowly. And so I am the results of those 30 years of cave diving. I am the results of being in the ocean. I just maybe don't really see as much because it's come
From you, yeah.
from the years and years. But yeah, definitely. I know when I'm on a boat, for example, if I show up somewhere on a boat with a lot of recreational divers, I never had that need to boast, like my qualifications or my numbers, or I get on the boat, do my thing, especially if I'm diving for my own pleasure. And I let the people that are diving with me, the dive guides that are diving with me, produce their own judgment just by watching me when I'm diving, just by watching me when I respond to their signals, just by watching me when I'm with them. And I let them decide what kind of diver I am. I don't need to go around and boast unless somebody, asks, what do you do? Or, but to me is the best way.
What advice do we give the young explorers that want to follow your same path or like your path?
Well, then that's the issue, right? It's just like my path is a 31 years in the making.
Or somebody that wants to like get into cave diving.
Cave diving. Okay. Do you want to just specifically about cave diving is, it takes time. It takes a lot of dedication. But it can be done. I've done it. And I actually paid my cave diving class and I used to get paid $50 a day. And I still paid my cave diving class and everything. If it matters to you, you'll find the way to focus on what you have to do. Do not rush it. Do not be cheap. Don't buy a secondhand spacesuit, right?
That's good advice.
Do not be cheap. I know it sounds horrible, but it's like, do not be cheap and take your time. But the most important thing is shop for the right person to train you. So interview your instructor, ask them questions. I sometimes jump on Zoom calls with my students. Find if you have a connection. Find if you have an MO that is similar. Find if you have an energetic connection. I've made a couple of mistakes here and there where I didn't really match with my students, but in general, it really, really helps. But interview your instructor. And the number one sign for me, and I say that also because I do that when I look for some of the people that I want to dive with at a higher level or at the same level, is I want to make sure that when they dive, they also dive for their own pleasure. If somebody's only teaching, and they never go for their own passion, for their own pleasure, they cannot bring into the teaching real life experiences. Sakes. good, successful things. So shop with a foreign instructor that still enjoys diving for themselves. So
That's
let's review it. So shop for an instructor that is still diving for fun and for passion, that does sometimes things at a higher level of what they teach, so they can always bring in more experience. Very much don't be cheap and take your time.
very good advice. And is a place on earth you still dream of exploring or diving?
My goodness. Yes, the cave I dream to explore is the cave that I have not found yet. And
Good.
so every
That's a
time
good
I
one.
find the cave, it's the cave I dream to explore.
That's amazing. I love that. Yeah, I really like that. And if people knew one thing about caves of shark that will change how they feel about them, what would you want that one thing to be?
That caves are important to our health as much as we consider other things like fresh drinking water or the ocean or food or anything like that. And obviously, that they are not a place of monsters, but actually a place of wonder, of history and mystery.
Very beautiful. Christina, thank you so much for being this bridge between the caves and the ocean and connect everything with the world. I personally learned so much. You really ignite this part of me. Like I never thought I wanted to go cave diving because I was this is beyond my league. Even though, like as you say, I'm an instructor, I feel that's beyond my league. And I see, I think, too many like all the movies or stuff like that that got me a little bit. Maybe I stay in the open water where everything is easier, but you really ignite this and learning also how important are this ecosystem for the overall. For the overall, it's very inspiring, Christina, and for your time. Thank you so incredibly much.
Thank you, Pia. Thank you for having me. So nice to talk to you. Will do.
Okay, Christina, thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you, everybody,
Bye.
for watching. That was Cristina Zenato talking about cave diving.